It is the first Friday night this fall, and there are four major stories all across this country this evening. You see some of it there. Devastation across the southeast after Hurricane Helene rips through that area. In the southwest, Kamala Harris heading to the border at this very hour. In the Midwest, the United States Secret Service is now changing Donald Trump's plans, where they are and are not letting him go. And in the nation's biggest city, the Big Apple, the mayor in a federal courtroom earlier today. A lot going on. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Just absolute devastation in many parts of the country tonight after a monster, a Category 4 storm ripped all across the southeast. Started in Taylor, Florida, and made its way through. Hurricane Helene landing as a Category 4 storm in Perry, Florida, or just outside of it. Now being called a post-tropical cyclone, but the damage, as you can see there, is done, and a lot of the country, a lot of the southeast, is dealing with flooding at this hour. We know of at least 40 deaths. And that number is likely to climb. That is the story time and time again when these storms hit. Still across the country right now, 4 million people without power. There is record flooding in many communities as well. You're looking at right now Keaton Beach. That's Taylor County, Florida, where the storm first hit with 140-mile-an-hour winds. That right there, Unicoi County in northeast Tennessee. So think about what happened. This Category 4 storm landing in the Big Bend region of Florida, and that was the scene earlier today in northeastern Tennessee. A hospital surrounded by rising waters. At one point, at least 54 people on top of the roof there stranded. They had to use helicopters to get them off that hospital. In Tennessee tonight, we are told that all 54 are indeed safe, but that's just some of what they are dealing with. Go over east there to Asheville, North Carolina. Record storm surge or flooding there in that part of the state. One of the big worries there tonight, Lake Lure, one of the most popular lakes in that area. They are hoping that the dam there doesn't break. But this is part of the story all across the country this evening as one of the biggest storms we have seen in quite some time made its way through the southeast. But you can see there, bottom right of your screen, it is still a big weather event in much of this country. Our Xavier Walton is live for us tonight in the Big Bend region of Florida. So too is our Brooke Schaefer. This is where Helene first made landfall. We begin tonight with Brooke Schaefer and much of the damage there. Brooke, Keaton Beach, my gosh, some of the scenes there and what they are dealing with this evening.
It has been an emotional day here in Keaton Beach, Blake. I've talked to several people who live here whose homes are destroyed or severely damaged. They have described this damage in a few words. They have called it unimaginable, devastating, and unrecognizable. You can see as we show you just some of the homes here along Keaton Beach, it seems as though no homes were left untouched by this once Category 4 hurricane. But Blake, we've also got some drone video I'm hoping we can play for you because that really gives you a better look at the destruction across Keaton Beach. County officials are estimating that about 90% of the homes in Keaton Beach were destroyed or damaged by Hurricane Helene. This area saw triple-digit wind speeds, and the National Hurricane Center's Storm Surge Unit is predicting right now that they saw about 15 feet at least of storm surge. To give you an idea of just how high that storm surge can be, a woman who lives here said that the water reached at least that second floor. That main level of this home here had water inside of it. So today, a major day for cleanup as people come back here to find their properties again, either seriously damaged or gone, destroyed. Alongside us out here have also been some members of urban search and rescue teams. They have been going home by home, scouring the devastation, looking for people who might need some help. I have, though, been told by most people who live out here that most everyone heeded the warnings. They did get out. They evacuated ahead of this storm. Still, I talked to one woman who lost 2 properties out here during this hurricane. She said it's pretty difficult looking at all of this damage to imagine how this community comes back from this. Blake?
Brooke Schaefer live for us tonight in Keaton Beach. Again, that is in Taylor County where Helene made landfall. If you go about 20 miles south and just a little bit to the east of where Brooke is, that's where our Xavier Walton is tonight. Steinhatchee, Florida. Xavier, what are you seeing there?
Hey, Blake, we're getting an idea of what record-setting storm surge looks like. You see that? That's the water line. That means this entire area was completely underwater. This boat, if you look at it, it was pushed all the way to the ceiling. You see how it's kind of damaged there? We're also getting an idea as we turn the camera around of just how strong the winds were. That trailer was not there. It actually was across the street. Same goes for that as well. And then this house. This house was not here yesterday before Helene made landfall. In fact, it was across the street. As you see it right over there, that's the foundation it was knocked off of. So you talk about all of that storm surge, nearly 15 feet with that wind pushing it over here. Thankfully, no one was inside. And a lot of people in this community, at least here in Steinhatchee, actually evacuated, Blake.
Xavier Walton live for us tonight in Taylor County, again, where this all made landfall. Helene did last night. Xavier, thank you very much. More reporting later in the show here on The Hill. We'll take you into the Carolinas and see the situation there. But also this evening, it is back to the border. For the first time in 1,190 days, Kamala Harris, the vice president, is along the southern border. Tonight, she has decided to make the trek down to Douglas, Arizona. The White House is telling us that the vice president is going there to meet with officials as it relates to fentanyl. Obviously, a massive, devastating issue all across this country. The vice president could be going down there to speak about immigration. There's a rally as well. We expect to hear some of that on that front in about an hour's time. But first, to our Allie Bradley, who is live in Douglas, Arizona this evening, traveling alongside the vice president. Allie?
Yeah, hey, Blake. So what the sheriff of Cochise County wants is open communication and the willingness to work together. That is what he's calling on when Vice President Kamala Harris leaves his county. And he actually handed her a letter that we exclusively obtained here at NewsNation, where he says that her visit comes with mixed emotions, saying, quote, "It relates to a border in turmoil and the lack of timeliness." Now, this county that we are in right now, Cochise County, which is where Douglas is, it's a Godaway county. It is not a county that has been one where you see people walking over in groups of 100, 300, families self-surrendering, seeking asylum. No, this is a county that gets individuals in full-on camo from head to toe, getting into vehicles, getting into pursuits, and evading law enforcement. That is what they're experiencing every day down here. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris is slated to take the stage here at Cochise County College on the Douglas campus right behind us. Inside, when you walk in, it has big signs that say border security and stability. So obviously, that is what she's going to be leaning on when it comes to the campaign. And of course, you mentioned the fentanyl. That is a big sticking point. She is finishing up that tour with Sheriff Daniels right now, where she also is visiting the port. Tucson sector where we are, Blake, this is where the majority of the fentanyl seized is coming from. It's coming from this area and also Nogales. So that is why she's down here. And of course, we can expect her to talk about a myriad of issues, cracking down on the flow of fentanyl. But also we have some inside information where we know that Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to announce that as president, she would actually take further action than what President Biden did in the executive action and actually bring down a harder threshold when it comes to that border closure, Blake. So it'll be interesting to see, but kind of wild, I'm not even going to lie, to walk into that room and see these big banners that say border security with Kamala Harris, because they've been very compassionate when it comes to the border. And we've even seen people trying to evade this morning, Blake.
Allie Bradley live in Arizona tonight as the vice president is there ahead of her rally this evening. Allie, thank you. All right, so before this trip today, the Republican Congressman, Tony Gonzalez, he's a Republican from Texas, he went to social media and released a 4-page letter. And here's what it describes. In part, it says that there are more than, and this letter comes from the acting director of ICE, that there are more than 13,000 immigrants on ICE's docket that committed murder back in their home countries before they came to the United States. And more than 15,000 who were convicted of sexual assault from their home country as well. And those folks, those individuals, are now inside the United States. That report, that letter dropped not only as Kamala Harris was on Air Force Two going to Arizona, but just moments before Donald Trump made his first visit in Michigan. And as you might imagine, he jumped all over it.
Kamala Harris betrayed her oath. She unleashed these atrocities, and blood is on her hands at a level that probably nobody's ever seen in this country before.
Joining me now here on the Hill, Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, as well, NewsNation political editor. Hello, sir.
Hello, my friend. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We kind of sort of made it. Still a long ways to go.
I like our chances.
As I do, too. As Ali reported, the vice president is going to say tonight out on the campaign trail that she wants or she will go further than the current executive actions that are on the table right now. It begs the question, Chris, if that's what she's going to talk about,
right,
has she advised President Biden to do that right now? Or if not, why hasn't he maybe listened to her on that? But there's also some reporting out there that maybe President Biden's going to go there and do that. And it feels like there's a little bit of a 1-2 here between the White House and the campaign. What are they trying to set her up with?
I suspect that we'll be seeing that the administration will deliver on some of this and make permanent these things and do all of that stuff. Kamala Harris is playing out a tactic that we saw very effectively employed by a guy named Tom Suozzi, a Democratic congressman from Long Island.
I don't mean to jump in, by the way. These are live pictures of Kamala Harris, Douglas, Arizona. Keep going.
There it is. And she's got the olive drab. She's got the fatigue color on to go down there. It's giving war zone.
Tom Suozzi, though, Democrat in New York, pulled this off.
Here's how he did it. He decided that he was not going to get outbordered by the Republicans. And he's in George Santos's old seat out there. And he gave a template to Democrats running in the suburbs all over the country, which is, don't be in a crouch on this issue. Go out and say that you're tougher, you'll do all this stuff. Voters don't care particularly about flip-flopping as long as the candidate's flip-flopping in the correct direction or the direction that they want them to. And if Trump wants to say she's only taking these positions because I did, or she's only doing this under pressure, that isn't good enough. It has to be that voters believe that she really is insincere and won't really do it.
That was a fascinating image that we just saw, because when the camera panned to the right there, I believe that was border wall, or at least part of it. What is the Harris campaign trying to do here, Chris, by putting her at the border? Because, look, you've heard the arguments, right? She wasn't the border czar. She was in charge of root causes of migration. Republicans will say, I'm sorry, she should have gone down there to the border. And as I mentioned, it's been 1,190 days. This is an issue where she trails Trump, no questions asked. The polling has showed it time and time again. All right, here we go, pan right. What are they trying to do here with this image?
Bill Clinton won the presidency twice and got, in one of those times, won the re-election by a wide margin because he was really good at stealing issues that Republicans had. He stole fiscal conservatism. He stole welfare reform. He stole and stole and stole. And it made Republicans really mad. But it works. And the big question with Harris, and on this issue and on a host of other issues, will her party continue to let her get away with it? This is great politics. This is great politics in districts like Tom Suozzi's. This is great politics for winning the White House, to show these images, to say that you care, to say that you're going to keep the new rules in place and actually make them tougher. That's all good. Unless...
I was going to say, what's the unless here?
The unless is that there are people like the Castros from Julian and his brother, but who have been hardliners on immigration and don't like this kind of talk and don't want to hear this kind of thing. So what Harris has been toying with has been the possibility of a left-wing revolt. What she's counting on is that fear of Donald Trump among progressive voters in America is so profound that they're just going to let her run and let her do whatever she thinks she needs to do to get the presidency.
Hey, guys, real quick, let's go audio full. I wonder if we can hear anything. Kamala Harris live at the southern border. Chris can't hear. There's some intermittent noise there. Should she go to the camera right now and start taking some questions and an image down.
Well, she should take questions from our reporter, obviously. She should exclude all the other reporters, and she should take questions from. Look, her interview that she did this week with Stephanie Ruhle was bad, right? She's not good.
A lot left to be desired.
She's not good at doing interviews, and I bet we won't see too many more from her. I think we're going to see a optic campaign from her like this going forward.
Kamala Harris at the border. Let's stick with these pictures here. She's going to go after Donald Trump tonight, Chris, and basically say he failed. He put politics over the country by killing the Senate deal. Republicans will say that deal never had a shot. Anyways, we know the arguments, right? The White House, and look at that, Kamala Harris looking through the border wall there, down on the southern border. I don't know what specific agency she's with there, probably CBP, Customs and Border Protection. The media that is traveling with the vice president, here's what they said. They said, we drove down a deserted road to get here with very little in sight. We then turned onto a dirt road, and the motorcade kicked up a lot of dust, as you might imagine. And that's sort of the area where the vice president is right now. So there could be, Chris, so look, Democrats are going to say, and she's going to say tonight, Donald Trump put politics over the country. And there's going to be a lot of Republicans who say, Madam Vice President, about 1,000 days too late.
Yeah. And again, that's not an effective argument if people believe her now, right? If they believe her now, then it's not an effective argument because people have a low. Donald Trump knows this better than anybody else. He's changed his position on a million things. He's had 20 positions on abortion in the last 6 months.
Yep.
As long as you're moving in the direction the voters want you to move, they're going to be very forgiving. And if Republicans stick with the argument of it's too little, too late, that won't blunt the effect. What would blunt the effect is the next time she's talking about this. So you remember when she made a comment about that she'd back doing away with the filibuster?
Yep.
That did more damage to her campaign.
How so?
Oh, my gosh. You don't want to mobilize and motivate those Senate voters, people who are concerned about the Senate, and it sounds radical, and she moves out onto the edge, and she's doing stream of consciousness in an interview somewhere. She's like, yeah, I'm for doing away with the filibuster, and throws it out there. If those kinds of things hurt her effort to establish herself as a moderate and establish herself as she says, a president for all Americans, much more than anything Republicans are going to say, because people don't listen to what Republicans have to say about Democrats. They listen to what Democrats have to say about themselves.
Guys, put that video back up if we can, just because I want to explain one thing real quick if we have it. So what you have right now, what you're looking at, there is a group of reporters who travel alongside the vice president.
The pool.
The pool is what it's known as. And you see these big boom mics, and look at all those reporters, right? So there's a selected group who travel alongside. She is, after all, of course, the sitting vice president of the United States and the current Democratic nominee for president. So this is the group that travels with her. We did not know, at least to the best of my knowledge, Chris, at least publicly, that this was going to happen. Do you think we're going to start to see more of this? Look, we're only 37 days away until the election. And there's what we hear time and time again. Voters want to learn more and see more of Kamala Harris. So is this the playbook?
Yeah, for sure. You want to be there. The time is short enough at this point. You pick 3 messages and you just repeat them. She's in a swing state today talking about immigration in Arizona. She was in Pittsburgh earlier this week talking about jobs in the economy. You just lather, rinse, repeat. You do it over and over and over again. Message discipline. And you use the excuse, by the way, and I should say both candidates do this, of talking nonsense.
Right.
That you say, oh, time is too short. I wish I had more time. It's like, well, you could have started giving policy speeches 6 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, if only there was more time, I'd tell you all of the details that I have.
So Kamala Harris, Douglas, Arizona. It was interesting, Chris, as our Allie Bradley reported, the port of entry and so what you're probably looking at right now, yep, there we go. Feed is closed. They basically told the media to get lost, wrap it up, get lost. No, they didn't say get lost. Basically, wrap it up. They're on to their next spot. But that right there, a fascinating look. Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee for president, at the southern border. There are Republicans who are going to say, Madam Vice President, too late. There are Democrats who are going to say, this is
You're making me nervous.
You're making me a little bit nervous, right? But here we are, 37 days to go. To your point, we are going to see not everything, but close to everything on message down to the finish line. By the way, Donald Trump is set to be live later in this hour. If that happens, we will take you to the Republican nominee for president live. Live look, Warren, Michigan, the great state of Michigan. Big story out today. They are changing, the Secret Service is changing Donald Trump's security plan for his rally tomorrow in Wisconsin. Why they're doing that? Other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. The Secret Service continues to be under increased scrutiny, and today The Hill is reporting that a Trump campaign rally on Saturday was moved over Secret Service staffing concerns. Live look, Warren, Michigan. Donald Trump set to speak here soon, we believe. He's in Michigan tonight. He'll go to Wisconsin tomorrow. Our Joe Khalil next to me now with the reporting on this one. Secret Service, Joe, making changes, and what they're doing is, let's show the image, they're putting him in an arts center, not outside, but in an arts center there in the local area that holds some 750 people.
It's basically a theater. It's much easier to secure. And look,
so that's the image there right there. We're looking at Donald Trump live in Michigan. He doesn't want to be in a theater like that, but the Secret Service is saying that's what you need.
They're doing that. And look, they're living every day now like it's the day after July 13th. They have to do that. What people don't understand when you're outside is you have an inner perimeter right around Donald Trump. You have an outer perimeter that is actually local law enforcement, not Secret Service. It's reminding me of yesterday at this hearing we heard that they said, look, on July 13th, if he had more resources for the Secret Service that day, would that perimeter have been safer at where the shooter was? The answer was yes. So more people equals more safety. Right. They gotta work with the campaign. Sometimes the campaign wins. In this case, I think Secret Service won.
All right, Joe K, Joe Khalil. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, Joe, thank you. All right, so once again, live pictures in Warren, Michigan. Donald Trump set to speak any moment. We were just looking at Kamala Harris as she was down at the southern border in Douglas, Arizona. Steyerwalt is back here to break it all down. So Trump in Michigan right now, Harris in Arizona. Arizona, the southern states you would think are Trump territory. Why is Arizona different than Georgia and North Carolina, which you're looking into?
Well, if Donald Trump wants to win, then they better be Trump territory. You better, because remember, we talked about the blue wall and then there's the red wall. The red wall is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Trump's got to win them all. Right. There's no path without those. And the people at Fox News, and you can trust this poll even if you're a Democrat. Even if you don't like Fox News, you can trust this poll as a Democrat because they have a great team of bipartisan pollsters who work together to do the poll, and they gave us some delicious polls on the red wall states. Start with Arizona. Okay, there you go. Donald Trump is up 2 in Arizona. That's actually about where Republicans are. Arizona has been a Republican state for a long time, but it's not like a 20-point Republican state. It's a 4 or 5 point. So this is not an abnormal showing in Arizona. But if we look at Georgia, this is a state, I remind you people, this is a state George W. Bush won by like 18 points in 2004. Georgia was a red state, and here she is leading in Georgia by more than Trump is leading in Arizona. So why? Here's why. I'll show you. The big wall, the magic wall will tell us all. Here you go. Who lives in Arizona? What do we know about Arizona's population? What we know is there are not very many black voters in Arizona, and there are a lot of Hispanic voters in Arizona. In Arizona, there are a lot of people without college degrees. That's what we know in Arizona. Who does Donald Trump do really well with? White people without college degrees, working class white voters. That's Donald Trump's strongest place. Boom. You see that 71%, 64%. What about Georgia? How's that different? See that middle number? 29% of the electorate in Georgia in 2020 was African American. That's significant. Also look that the share of Georgians with college degrees is higher, a little bit higher.
Tighter spread there.
Right? So this, you see why you see, ta-da, do it, magic wall. Show us the magic number. One more. Here we go. There it is. Here's what you see. Here's Arizona. How's Donald Trump running with Hispanic voters? Pretty well. He's running about as well as George W. Bush ran with Hispanic voters, about 40%. Those are pretty good numbers for a Republican. That's about what they should be doing. But how's he doing with black voters in Georgia? No bueno. Not doing well down there. And that number affects that number because there are a lot of black voters in Georgia with college degrees. So the non-college community in Georgia has more black voters than not. She's going to do even better than that. She'll get a higher share than that in the final tabulation. And that helps you understand strengths and weaknesses in the red wall. There you have it.
Helps us understand indeed. Steyerwalt breaks it down.
Ta-da.
There's still much more ahead here on the Hill as Helene, once the monster hurricane, slams the East Coast. A live look right now, Greenville, South Carolina. The storm battering many parts of the Gulf Coast, leaving behind destruction. Still millions without power at this moment, and there is lots to go here for many folks in that region. Plus, the leader of the Big Apple not talking, Eric Adams, in federal court today. What his lawyer said after the historic hearing. And Donald Trump live any moment now. We showed you Kamala Harris at the border. If Trump speaks this hour, you will hear from him too. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. The damage all across the Southeast now being surveyed in community after Helene, a Category 4 storm. Winds of at least 140 miles an hour ripped through northern Florida into Georgia and then up through parts of the East Coast. Greenville, South Carolina, top right of your screen, you can see the water continuing to rush. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Along the beach there, the wind's still ripping. You can see this is still a big weather system, but the damage was done for the most part last evening. 40 people at least feared to be dead. Millions are still without power. Our Mills Hayes is live in Valdosta, Georgia. That is north and east of Tennessee, north and east of Taylor County in Florida, where Helene came ashore first last night and then continued its way up. Mills, what are you seeing there?
Hey, Blake. Well, we're actually in Lake Park. That's about 20 miles away from Valdosta, Georgia. And we're here in this mobile home park community. And it has really been destroyed by this hurricane. I spoke with this family and they have actually lived in this home right here since the 1990s. But now it's completely destroyed. The roof is off. I want to show you guys one of the survivors of the hurricane last night. This little kitten right here. Absolutely adorable. Very glad that he survived, but I want to show you where the real damage is inside. It really is insane when you look at just how bad it is. And it really is devastating to this family because they've had this home in their family for 30 years. They have so many memories here of Christmas and holidays. And it was a very scary situation last night whenever the hurricane was coming through. They had about 15 minutes before it actually hit the home. They ran over to their family's house who lives right next door. But this is just completely obliterated here. And also this family tells me that they don't have insurance. So they're not entirely sure how they're going to pay for all this. They also don't really know where they're going to live. They're going to stay with family for a while, but they can only stay with family for so long. So they're not entirely sure what their next option will be. And this is really what remains of their home here. And you know what's so interesting is that they still say that they're blessed. They're grateful because they're still alive right now, even though they have all this mess and their homes destroyed. They don't know where they're going to be living for the next couple of weeks. They say they are the blessed ones. And I think that that is something that is a positive out of this, that you can look at this situation from a positive angle. Blake?
Wow. And I'm sure stories like that, block by block, town by town, and as I said, community after community in many parts of this country tonight. Our Mills Hayes live for us in central Georgia. Mills, thank you. So if you go to the east of where she is there, you get out to the coast. Parts of the ports, rather, in Georgia, the major ports there, were actually taken offline today. They were shut down for a bit as they surveyed the damage and wanted to make sure all their workers are safe, of course, right? But the ports could be a major, major story, weather aside, going up here in the upcoming days. On Tuesday, there is the possibility of a massive port strike all across this country, from New England to Florida, down all the way out to parts of Texas. 36 ports in more than a dozen areas expected to go on strike if there is not a deal that is reached. Some 85,000 workers at the ports say they will walk off the job if they don't get better pay. and terms that they want. Chris Spear is the president of the American Trucking Associations, joins us live here in studio. Hello, thanks for being with us. So we talk about the ports, right? Yeah. Obviously, if you shut down the ports all across the East Coast, that's not good news for a lot of folks. They're potentially doing this for better pay. The truckers, though, who you represent, that's part of the downstream effects with this, is it not?
Oh, it is. And we're supporting all 36 ports. So, New York, New Jersey, we've got literally 12,000 trucks running in and out of that port a day. So 14,000 registered at Baltimore, over 30,000 registered at New York, New Jersey. Our industry is a very integral part of moving the boxes in and out of these ports. So, it's going to be significant, not just on the 85,000, that are supporting the ILA, but, all the modes, including rail, trucking, we're all going to be impacted by that.
Okay, so you say we're all going to be impacted by that. If you shut down the ports, then the truckers don't have product to move. In theory, that drives up prices, right, for current. What am I going to feel at home, and when am I going to start to feel it?
You're going to see agriculture probably first. The first week is pretty significant for farmers because produce, you can't allow it to expire. You're not going to reroute it through the West Coast. So things like pork, poultry, soybeans, cotton, but you're also looking at fruit. So things that go on those store shelves have a shelf life. So the first week is very, very instrumental for farming. And that impact beyond that, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, begin to transcend into the holidays because we're moving a lot of the products that end up on the shelves for Christmas. So beyond that, you're in first, second quarter of next year. The week by week really adds up quickly and backs up the entire supply chain. You're going to have less choice, higher prices, and inflation.
Less choice, higher prices, inflation. The last thing we want after it seems like we found out today that inflation continues to tick down. The White House can get involved with this. The White House is saying they're not going to invoke a federal law that would force the workers back on the job. Should they?
Absolutely. It is the responsibility of the President of the United States and this administration to lead, to mediate. So when two parties are in an impasse, you've got to have somebody that can bring them to the table and find a path forward, especially when we're talking half the nation's economy.
The unions would say, though, hey, we deserve we deserve the wages we want. That's what they would say.
The law allows them to collectively bargain for higher pay, benefits, less technology. These are the things they want. Come to the table. The USMX that represents the ports had to file a ULP, an unfair labor practice, yesterday with the NLRB to get them, National Relations Labor Board, to get them to the table, to get them to negotiate. You've got to keep them at the table. And we're coming up on Tuesday. So this could have huge implications going into the election, into the holidays. You would think the administration would want to be at the table with these parties, seeing it through.
And I would note that the strike is October 1st. The only vice presidential debate, October 1st. Could be the last one. You might get both sides on the record come Tuesday. Chris Spear.
Thanks, Blake.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, still to come here from the Hill. Eric Adams heads to court, pleading not guilty to charges of bribery and fraud. So what is next for the mayor of the largest city in this country? The full panel after the break.
NewsNation tonight. Rapper, producer, business mogul, defendant.
We lay out the case, you be the judge.
The People versus Sean Diddy Combs. Tonight at 9/8 Central, only on NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. The New York City Mayor Eric Adams pleading not guilty earlier today in federal court after being indicted on corruption charges. The mayor's legal team will now be filing a motion to dismiss all 5 counts, which include conspiracy, wire fraud, soliciting foreign contributions, and bribery. Adds up to 45 years in federal prison, potentially. A change today for the mayor. He did not do the talking publicly. His lawyer did.
The entire body of evidence is one staffer that says there was a conversation. What you have not learned is that staffer has lied. It's the other government that everybody should be disappointed in, bringing this case against the sitting mayor.
All right, so that part of his defense. Full panel now. Joe Khalil, welcome back. Chris Steyerwalt, of course. Hello, Samantha Dravis, former official in the Trump administration. Brad Howard, Democratic strategist. Happy Friday at 6:47 here on the East Coast. Still got some show to go. You know a thing or two about New York City politics. Tell me what you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a good day for the mayor, so to speak. I think the attorney there was dramatically undercutting the case that the Southern District of New York has. This is a jurisdiction that doesn't play. When they come to the courtroom, they do their homework. They dot their I's and cross their T's. They've got a compelling case. They've got text messages. They've got emails. They've got more staffers turning by the day, apparently, and we've only begun to see the evidence here. There's more that's certainly going to come out.
What are Democrats saying?
Well, look, this is, when you take this into account, anytime a member of your party is indicted for corruption, it's not a good thing. It undercuts our argument, that we have against Trump, who is a convicted felon at this point. So, what I do think the implications are really going to be in Congress. You're going to see some of this. AOC's already come out and have the mayor to resign. The reason why is the public advocate that would become mayor is a far left progressive and been a thorn in his side forever, right? Okay. And so that's why you don't see a lot of maybe other New York Democrats yet calling for him to step aside because, this progressive could cause more damage for an election.
Very Trump-like position for the mayor, is it not?
Well, look, I do agree with Brad. It's a sensational political development. It's going to be very difficult for him to continue serving as mayor. I actually read the indictment, and although I do think there's very compelling evidence that campaign finance violations occurred, I actually think it's going to be tougher for the government to prove.
On the bribery?
On both. Okay. So I think I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but I think there's less compelling evidence in the indictment that Eric Adams knew about the donations or that he directed those donations to occur. And then I think you have the second point, which is the gifts that he was given, these free first-class upgrades, about how those are really valued, given that airlines often give those up for free to members of Congress.
I always like to ask this to attorneys real quick. If you had to pick one side to take, you'd rather be the government or defending Adams?
Well, I would rather not be, I think being charged with federal crimes is not a position I would want to be in. But I think...
To be clear, the perk that they give members of Congress for upgrades, it's not because they're a member of Congress, it's because they fly home so much.
But I think the question is how those are valued, right? So the government is saying he accepted $100,000 worth of valued flight seats. Right. And I think there's a strong legal argument that that's not the case.
All right. By the way, New York City happened today. Donald Trump meeting, would you look at this, with Vladimir Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine, happened earlier today. Of course, world leaders are in New York right now. Here was some of that meeting.
We have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it resolved.
I hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have...
Joe, interesting dynamic there. And the dynamic when Zelensky comes to the U.S. between Democrats and Republicans is a fascinating one.
Look, it becomes harder for Republicans like Mitch McConnell or Michael McCall to continue to tell Zelensky, no, we got your back. This gave me a little bit of flashback to covering Trump, and on the global stage he says something where Democrats go, what the hell are you talking about? And Republicans will go, this is overblown, it's fine, but then my sources will whisper to me, what the hell was he talking about? Right. It's one of those things where I think it just does make it a little bit harder. Now, having said that, is this like a damaging thing on the campaign trail? I don't know how much voters are, Zelensky and Ukraine may not be their 1, 2, or 3 issue, but it is going to have some Republicans at least rolling their eyes a little bit.
Awkward. Yeah, this is the look of misery on Zelensky's face there is, it's a perfect... And he knows the truth, of course. If Donald Trump gets elected, he's in a world of trouble, right? Yep. He's in a world of trouble. And J.D. Vance has made it very clear what the priorities are. And the question I think about voters only because we got 5 weeks to go. That's what I'm about. So the question is, are there former Republicans or Republican-leaning voters in the suburbs of Phoenix and the suburbs of Atlanta and the suburbs of Raleigh who are very concerned about what's going to happen to Ukraine. And they're on the fence. Can I actually vote for Kamala Harris or not vote for Kamala Harris? This is, we're talking about states where we're going to have decisions probably by 15,000 votes, 20,000 votes. So every little bit makes a difference.
You have the best Sunday show in the business. What you got coming up on the Hill Sunday?
Well, we're going to talk to Ned Lamont. He's the governor of Connecticut. We're going to talk about the campaign with him. And we're going to talk to Ralph Norman, Republican congressman from South Carolina. We're going to have a fantastic panel. We're going to have Strat Chat. We're going to do it all. And we're going to explain something, which is how wrong will the polls be this time? How wrong will the polls be this time?
Big wrong or little wrong? Or
well, you have to watch on Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday to find out.
Big wrong or little wrong?
I think everyone should vote, particularly Democrats.
It was interesting. There was an article in The Hill earlier this week about how Democratic senators are fearful that Trump once again might be under polls.
Well, this is what we're going to explore. This is what we're going to talk about. It's going to be so good.
All right. Thank you, guys. Still to come here on The Hill. If you weren't with us at the top of the hour, something that we really weren't expecting. Kamala Harris walking up to border wall down in Arizona. Some of that scene on the other side of the break. Leland Bitter joins. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. Live look, right side of your screen there. Warren, Michigan. Donald Trump expected to speak at any moment now. Live look, by the way, in Douglas, Arizona, as the vice president. Kamala Harris is expected to speak in that border state as well. You can see the podium there. Kamala Harris speaking later this hour. It was fascinating where we began this hour here on The Hill, because for the first time, clearly in this campaign, and the first time in some 1,200 days, that was the image. The vice president, the Democratic nominee for president, down at the southern border. And as we keep this video up, you will see at one point Leland Vittert, host of On Balance, Kamala Harris next to the border wall. We did not know that particular event was going to be happening. What do you make of it?
Perhaps filming a campaign commercial.
You think so?
Well, they need new material, because her last border commercial included video from the Trump border wall. This is what I think is going to be very interesting, is how are you going to marry, and this has been a problem on a number of issues, no more poignant than the border. How are you going to marry what she says today and what she has said in the past about illegal immigration, about illegal immigrants, about securing the border, about whether the border is or is not secure, on and on and on and on. And that is just fodder for Donald Trump's campaign.
It's not political. It's what we're taught as children. Actions speak louder than words, right?
Well,
and the actions of her not going there for some 1,200 days versus what she says